Well, in the early 70s, all through the 70s actually, till the mid 80s, it was living from exhibition to exhibition, from season to season. As everyone knows, it's a very pleasant time of the year in Mumbai from November to March. Everybody wants to have their exhibitions during this time. But we were accommodating as many people as we could and as many shows that we could, doing justice, keeping the shows on for a reasonable length of time. The trend in Bombay used to be a week at the most, which included your hanging time, your decommissioning of the exhibition time. But I felt it should be nice to have it for at least a 3-week period. So to get all that established took me well into the 80s to identify art historians who could write in the catalogs. That's another thing we did and did quite successfully. We had exhibitions had catalogs accompanying them with all the list of works that were on display, a reasonably good or very good essay on the artist and the current work that he or she was displaying. So all those things were happening, and then we would bind these catalogs into what I called an annual catalog. So it would be a good document, easier to store, easier for people to keep in their libraries, because otherwise these 8-page, 10-page, 12-page catalogs, people would tragically pick them up and you'd find them lying just at the gallery's doorstep as they left, because we were giving this as a public service free to anybody who visited us or anybody who even wrote in and asked us for a catalog. And of course, we were very generous with the number of catalogs we used to give to the artists. So that took us right into the mid-80s. And my tastes in art and my interest in art history also started to widen. So from contemporary art, I was going backwards because I was asked a very pertinent question. Well, what was there between contemporary art and the miniature paintings from Rajasthan and the Mughals? And that made me think that where were we? We were missing a big part of our art history. And that took me to a second career, which has been very, very rewarding, because I discovered I'm basically a research person in my heart. You know, I like to sit in the library. I get very carried away. A project that should be done in, say, 3 months sometimes takes a year and 3 months, because you read around your subject. You can't just zoom into the few artists or the few notations that you want to take. You take and you cull what you need before you write your article. So in the mid-80s, I discovered this huge 300 period of Indian art history, which was there, what we call company school painting, and even what predates company school painting. All the lithography, all the topographical views that were there in India. I got to understand who was Atkinson, who were the Daniels, who was Hodges, who was Grinley, who was Forbes, who was Pouget. A whole host of names opened up and their histories opened up. And I was very fortunate that I had a wonderful colleague who literally took me under her wing when her husband said, "Why don't you come and research with my wife?" And the lady's name is Pauline Rohatki. Unfortunately, she died last year, which has been a severe blow. She'd been very ill before that. It was a gradual process for me to accept her loss. And her husband said, "She's got stuck at D." I said, "Who's D?" He said, "You've never heard of the Daniels?" And that's how the research began. That's how the publication began. I've written more on this subject than I've written on contemporary Indian art. And publications came out, prints became popular. 1982 was the Festival of India and Britain. I got to know Dr. Mildred Archer, Dr. Ronald Lightbrown, and so many others at the BM, at the BL, and at the VNA. And that career has brought me into a different sphere altogether, and I've never forgotten contemporary Indian art, because I got more involved not only with the Prince of Wales Museum, but with the National Gallery of Modern Art. And when I was I have to say this with all humility, I was invited on several occasions to become the honorary director or even the honorary chairperson to the advisory committee. I finally succumbed. It was a huge learning experience for me, because here I was reacting at a totally different level. not museum directors and people who ran museums either in a trust or in a public domain or through public subscription, but here we were working with a very, very well-defined bureaucracy. And I found with all the learning with my colleagues like Mr. Khaned, who had been seconded from the Science Museum to do a double role as director of the NGMA Mumbai, my predecessor Dr. Saryu Doshi, the late Mr. B.G. Deshmukh, Mr. Sabyasachi Mukherjee. I couldn't have done it without the support even of my own committees in the 3-4 museums that I'm attached to, because you can't do this job on your own. You have to carry not only the artist community, but you also have to carry the admin community and all the people who support you. And we've had some wonderful exhibitions at the NGMA. It has been a labor of love, but I learned something very quickly. If you follow the rules and if you stick to those rules, your work is very well cut out and you get a lot more done, and there's a lot of cooperation on the other side of the fence which they're willing to offer us as lay people. When that NGMA move came and I saw it coming, I just felt I won't be able to do justice to Cymroza. It is, after all, a gallery, an unusual gallery because we are sitting, so to speak, on the cusp. We work a lot with the artists, we work a lot with the public, we work a lot with the buyers, we work a lot with the historians. We sit somewhere in between. We're not 100% commercial gallery. And I've never made a lot of money, and I'm very blessed that I had parents who supported me, not indulged me. I also had parameters and brakes put on me. I still do have parameters and brakes put on me, and it's a good thing for young people to learn. Cut your coat according to the cloth that you have. You won't go wrong if you do that. Don't overextend yourself. We see it in the marketplace all the time, and it only spells doom at the end. So I took a conscious decision. I remember artists like Arpana Kaur, Sarojpal Gogi, even Rekha, who said, "What about us? What about the artists?" I said, "Well, the gallery is well established. We've got a dedicated team over there, a small team, but they're dedicated. You know them all. Whatever your problems are, whatever your queries are, we will help you resolve them and take matters forward, whether it's your exhibition in our gallery, outside our gallery, sending your works to another exhibition in another part of the country. We'll take care of all of that, but I will not take care of sales." And I kept my word to myself. And when I was on the committee earlier, I would recuse myself from the purchase committee in case there was an artist who was in my who I had nurtured or who was still exhibiting with me. I would step down. And very often the artists would get very angry that just because you're on the purchase committee, why do we have to suffer? I said, that's my principle. I'd like to adhere to it. It's for a short period of time. I'm not going to be there forever and ever. So it's 3 years advisory with Dr. Saryu Doshi, and then finally myself with a very good team and with very good cooperation. So I did move in a different direction, and because of me, Cymroza moved in a different direction. But we've had some wonderful shows in planning. We've had some major shows. We had the late Satish Gujral exhibit with us, and he became a constant artist exhibiting with us. We've done beautiful drawings by Krishan Khanna. I mean, these are people we look up to in the art world, and I'm happy that I could successfully balance these two roles. And of course, there was a committee after us, and I've given whatever cooperation they required of me. And we're celebrating Cymroza at 50. I don't know where the years flew by. There was a little lull, of course, as you were raising a young family. You had to travel with them. You had to see to their needs. But I think, looking back, I managed.